In 1620, it took the Pilgrims aboard the Mayflower 66 days to traverse 3,207 miles across the Atlantic. Boats and other nautical vessels remained the primary mode of transatlantic transportation for the next 307 years, until Charles Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic in 33.5 hours aboard the single-engine monoplane Spirit of St. Louis. That's over 98% faster than that of the Pilgrims, and still significantly faster than any nautical vessel of his time. Today, aviation has been around for only 110 years, and yet, in this span of time, there has been more innovation, progress, and worldwide connection than any other period of human history. Today, we are going to look at why aviation is the catalyst of globalization.
Delta 2116, wind calm, runway 25 left, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, 25 left, Delta 2116.
Delta 2116, contact SoCal departure, good day.
Globalization is defined as the process in which cultures, ideas, and resources are spread around the globe, continuously connecting people and creating a unified mindset worldwide. There are three main drivers to globalization. The first driver is technological advancements. Innovations that become standardized internationally help improve the global quality of life, and give the opportunity for new innovations to arise in other parts of the world. International regulations and standardization makes the second driver. This involves making regulations and procedures in certain industries common worldwide, allowing fluid operation between organizations when working outside the nations they originated from. The third and final driver is economic expansion around the world, with businesses and organizations expanding their influences to broader customer bases on the other parts of the globe. This driver could also include how different cultures, societal mindsets, and ideas are able to expand and make their way to other people, which also brings a sense of unison to societies across the world and produces the existence of a global mindset. So, where do airplanes come into play with all this? Well, planes affect all three of these drivers in different and significant ways. Let's start with the first one. Even though aviation influences the driver of technological advancements indirectly, its contribution to it is still notably important. Aircraft manufacturers and flight engineers are constantly developing innovations that promote efficient human flight. However, many of these innovations rarely remain solely in the aviation industry. For example, a number of day-to-day appliances owe their existence to aviation, including smoke detectors, solar panels, memory foam, de-icing equipment, and even shock-absorbent materials used in artificial limb construction.
When you look at our day-to-day lives, a lot of our day-to-day lives are driven by the types of things that are happening in aviation and military, etc. So I work in the automotive industry, and by and large, the advances that come into the automotive industry come from more expensive vehicles, if I just use that generic term. More expensive vehicles are things like space travel, military travel, and aviation. So for example, the next wave of innovation in automotive development will be the autonomous vehicle. You see the Google car now. What does that have its genesis in? It has its genesis in aviation.
Aviation's biggest contribution to this driver has to be the development of radar. Radar, or radio detection and ranging, is a technology that sends out radio waves over a distance. When those waves hit an object, it creates a disruption in the wave, or a ping, and bounces the signal back to a receiving station, telling the user the location of the object that disrupted the radio wave. This idea of using radio waves to detect presence has been used all over the world. One of the most recent applications of radar is blind spot alerting systems in cars, where a transmitter in a car will send radio waves over a car's blind spot to detect when another vehicle enters it to increase situational awareness while driving. Car manufacturers all over the world have all begun standardizing blind spot monitors in their vehicles. With industries worldwide utilizing these byproducts of the aviation industry more and more, aviation is helping human progress soar by contributing numerous technological advancements to many industries, pun intended. When it comes to the second driver, the driver of standardizing and regulating commonly throughout the world, one of aviation's biggest contributions is safety. After more than 70 years of pioneering and experimenting, commercial flying is undoubtedly one of the safest forms of travel, thanks to the industry's rigorous emphasis on safety.
When we talk about track record of aviation, I think in the early years of aviation, we did have plenty of accidents. The processes to manufacture, the way we train pilots to respond to situations in aircraft, the reliability of systems and engines and components in aircraft has increased extremely. So statistically, airline travel or travel by airplane is still one of the safest absolutely safest ways to travel.
Modern protocols and procedures used to ensure the safe operation of an aircraft are so successful that they are beginning to be implemented in other sectors. For example, checklist usage, something that is heavily utilized by pilots and flight crew, is now being regulatory for high-risk jobs such as medical professions and nuclear power plant operations. Besides improving safety and operational effectiveness, aviation is also a prime example of practicing international regulations. In the United States, federal regulations for pilots and commercial operators are enforced by the Federal Aviation Administration. However, the FAA works with the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, the agency specialized by the United Nations to enforce worldwide aviation regulations. Even though many nations have their own enforcement agencies, they are all tied together by ICAO in order to standardize aviation regulations internationally and allow the 191 different member states to accept flights back and forth without having to inefficiently hassle with conflicting legal issues.
If you have standard regulations to get into a country, then you know that your product that you fly to various other countries will also go into that country without having new equipment or new requirements levied on it. Is going to make it easier and more welcoming for that operator to go into that country.
It is also a global body that accepts responsibility of environmental effects, aviation law enforcement, and maintaining the global aviation industry's efficient operation to continue supporting the global economy. The establishment of an international body to organize the industry on a global scale is one way aviation is literally pulling different parts of the world together, and is connecting them in a way that not only allows for global economic support, but also exemplifies how it is possible to make a global community that is able to be enforced and regulated effectively, despite many legal differences nations may have. The final driver, the driver of business and cultural expansion, is probably where aviation shines the most.
We cannot do international business without aviation. The internet is, that's a different phenomenon that is definitely more recent, but that's the whole reason that we have this field of international business, because it's been such an important part of developing the global economy. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Aviation allows businesses to operate long distances from their headquarters due to its useful ability of importing and exporting. Importing involves a service transporting goods to its current location in order to operate. Exporting involves a service producing goods in one country and selling them in another. Both of these processes are facilitated long distance by aviation, sometimes to the point where businesses are completely dependent on shipping companies to bring their resources to their place of operation.
We build a lot of our silicon wafers in the United States or in Europe, but then the back end is done in Asia, so we do the testing and a lot of the more rote kind of processes in lower cost countries. But because the devices are so small and weigh so little, they can be easily transported via air from one site to the next to the next.
So at Thunderbird School of Global Management, all of the faculty are also involved in training executives. So we have executive training programs going on all over the world. So I travel to Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Brazil, Peru, Colombia, places like that on a regular basis. And we also take students, graduate students, on trips to visit companies in other parts of the world, so they get an understanding of how business is done in other locations.
The last, but definitely not least, method aviation supports globalization is through its availability to common people. Because air travel is accessible to civilians in every continent, people in today's modern world have the opportunity to affordably travel to other parts of the globe and share culture, ideas, and mindsets, and build a sense of community with other people that are separated from them by thousands of miles of water.
It's important to have people together to exchange those ideas and develop various different kind of brainstorming sessions by having people face to face. So we do a lot of both of it. In fact, my last week was spent in the air, essentially. I started in Japan. Midweek I was in Germany. Friday I was in Montreal, and I'm back here. So within the span of a week, I circumnavigated the globe to visit customer after customer and then supplier along the way. So that doesn't happen without commercial aviation.
The fact that the ability to travel quickly over a long distance is commonly available allows people to find new opportunities in other nations, meet new people, and have a much broader network of resources within their reach. This alone is observably pertinent in today's world, and the increased potential for opportunity created by aviation is a noteworthy contribution that has compelled people to make connections and spread all around the earth.
I think aviation plays a large role. I don't think it's solely responsible for globalization and our expansion to or connecting other communities or other countries or cultures together. I think it's largely responsible, but I don't think it bears sole responsibility for it. I think it has had a great impact.
Well, I mean, it's a great thing. It's essential, right? Especially from my perspective, from global business perspective, we couldn't do global business without aviation, obviously. So it's an excellent thing. It's brought the world together. It's brought the global economy together.
Aviation is not the best factor that drives globalization, nor is it the most important. But because of its ability of expedited travel, its contribution to globalization is one of the most significant, and the world has never been unified under a mindset as globally conscious as today's. By indirectly helping other industries through technological advancements, showing the world how to implement commonalities internationally in order to work together, and literally giving people and businesses the ability to travel to new destinations and share themselves, aviation has proven itself a paramount factor on the global playing table, and we would most likely not see the self-aware international society we see today without it. This is how aviation has catalyzed globalization.